Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Sizing is okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I wasn't going to start the presentation slide because I feel like it always gets wonky, so we'll just go side by side as long as that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
So here's what hoping to accomplish or go through today. So the first part is just, what is total rewards? I hear total rewards, but what does total rewards mean? What does total rewards do, and who's on the team? We're going to go over our different retirement accounts on campus. So as you all know, I know you are all faculty. However, you might work with colleagues that have different employee classes and therefore have different retirement accounts and things like that. So we'll go through what retirement accounts do we have, what do they mean, and all of those good things. We're going to talk about some resources. So giving you all resources as you're nearing retirement of who to reach out to, what does this mean, who's my retirement account contact, etc. We're going to talk about the transitional retirement process. I think that's probably where a bulk of our questions may be. We'll talk about the retirement process. And then I always get questions on emeritus status and what does it mean and what does it include and what all of those kinds of good things. Does that sound good for everyone? Okay, perfect. So first up, who is total rewards? What is total rewards comprised of? So within the total rewards umbrella, we have three major functions that report in under the total rewards umbrella, and that is compensation. To be very clear on the compensation front, we only handle professional staff compensation. So we do not handle faculty compensation, full-time or adjunct. So full-time faculty compensation and adjunct compensation are all handled through academic affairs, and primarily the provost office handles all of the salaries and whatnot. Our compensation is specific to our professional staff, and then we also handle classified staff. Okay. Then we have benefits, and we'll unpack all of these in just a second, but we also have our benefits team. So things like all your medical, dental, vision, all those kinds of good things. And then recently, I say recently, but really it's been 9 months, student employment moved over and under within our umbrella. And it makes sense from the perspective of we handle, the various, again, employee classes with their retirement accounts, their benefits, compensation for a couple. And so student employment is no different in that realm. And so we do handle the student employment on campus. So far, so good. Okay. Here's a visual breakdown of the different components of total rewards. So we always say we'd like to break it down into 6 pieces. So we have leave, we have student employment, benefits, compensation. The employee tuition benefit got transferred over to us as well recently. Again, I say recently, it was within the last 9 months. Time flies when we're having fun, I guess. And then the primary section, like I said, that we're all going to talk about today is retirement. Any questions on any of that? Okay. And I saw something pop in the chat. Oh, okay, perfect. So Sam J just shared this presentation because I did put links within the presentation so that you all have it. Okay, so let's jump in. Retirement accounts. So the first retirement account that we have, and we're going to talk specifically for full-time faculty, all of you. So some of you may be enrolled in what we call the State Universities in Colorado Defined Contribution Retirement Plan, or our DCRP, because if I have to say that all day, we're going to be here longer than an hour. But so we have our DCRP account, but then we also have PARA, and we'll cover PARA in just a second. So bear with me for a moment. So and I'm not asking anybody to share this information, but there might be some of you on this call that do have either an account with TIAA, Fidelity, or we also had VALIC, or now they called themselves AIG, and I think now they're called Corebridge. We do have some individuals still on campus that are enrolled with the VALIC brand. We did close new enrollment to that retirement vendor. So within our defined contribution retirement plan, we do have it down to the two vendors, which are TIAA and Fidelity. Just as a reminder to everybody, our plan is in lieu of Social Security. So we are Social Security exempt. Over the years, you have probably noticed we do not pay into Social Security. Rather, we pay into this defined contribution retirement plan. Employees contribute 8% and MSU Denver contributes 11.4%. And those are fixed amounts. Okay. Any questions on that one?
Amanda?
Yeah.
I recently had a conversation with Social Security, and they told me that because this is not a prescribed pension plan where there's a set amount of money that comes out of it every month and that sort of stuff, that it is not conditional to the windfall elimination and GPO. Do you have any idea if that's accurate?
So I will be fully transparent with you. I hesitate to say anything on Social Security on whether what they give is accurate or not. The only reason for that is I think every individual is specific, like every individual situation can be different and specific. Meaning, have they paid in? How many quarters have they paid in? Are they pulling through maybe a spouse or a former spouse's benefits? And so I will own I am not an expert in Social Security, so I hesitate to confirm or deny any information that they give out.
Okay.
All I can share is, from where I sit, WEP, so the windfall elimination provision, is a component that does have potential to impact one's retirement that they collect from this plan, and para for that matter as well.
Okay.
But how it does that, or if it does that, again, it's going to be specific to the individual.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if I just confused everybody with that, but hopefully that made sense. Good question. Okay. Where's my para plan? Okay, maybe I lost it. So I don't know if any of you on this call have para, but do know that we do have some individuals on campus. So every new full-time faculty member and every new professional staff member, and this has been for years and years, when they come within one of those employee classes, they are mandatory to participate in our defined contribution retirement plan, okay? The only exception to that is if somebody has prior para service credit, they do have a one-time irrevocable choice, and that is to remain in para or participate in our defined contribution plan. So we do have individuals that are enrolled in para that may be a full-time faculty member or a professional staff member, if that makes sense. Okay. So as I mentioned, these are fixed amounts, meaning you as the employee, again, contribute 8%, MSU Denver contributes 11.4%. And we oftentimes get questions with, hey, I want to contribute more. And so one can always contribute more, not to their mandatory plan, but we do have some voluntary plans available. So we have a 403B available with TIA and Fidelity. We also have a 457 and a 401k with para, and para does contract that out to a third-party provider, which at this time is Empower Retirement. One does not have to be or have any affiliation with para in order to be eligible to contribute to the 457 or the 401k. So you can be in the defined contribution, the DCRP plan with, say, TIA, and have a voluntary account through para. Does that make sense? Okay. On those voluntary accounts, the IRS does put limitations on how much one can contribute to those accounts, and so I outlined those limits there. Okay. Any questions? Okay. please do stop me if I miss anything. So resources. So we have a lot of different resources. Hopefully, you should get emails from the Total Rewards at MSU Denver email address. We try and send out this information, but we do regularly host TIA and Fidelity on campus. And individuals can sign up for one-on-one appointment times to meet in person on campus. Please know that this isn't the only time that you can meet with them. I know a lot of times when we send those signouts out, they fill up rather quickly and we get emails saying, hey, I wasn't able to get an appointment, let's say just with Ivana. It doesn't have to be a day that they are on campus. You can always reach out to them and set up an appointment that works for you. They are available. They are dedicated to our account. So Ivana with TIA and Stephen with Fidelity, they are dedicated to our retirement plan. And they are always available to answer any questions. So again, if you see one of those emails come out, please do not hesitate. If that doesn't work for your schedule and you would like to meet with them, please do not hesitate to reach out to them. They love when employees reach out and they love meeting with employees and helping. And so just don't ever hesitate to reach out to them. They are always there and available to help answer questions regarding our plan. We do also send out emails on webinars that both vendors host. So TIA and Fidelity both will host a pretty wide variety of webinars. There might be a month where none of the webinars may be looking interesting. There may be another month that there's several that are interesting. Please feel free to sign up for those. We try and send that information out monthly, and they try and change up what their offerings are. The other resource that we have is both of our vendors have what we call a microsite. So these microsites, within that PowerPoint presentation, you can click on the link. It'll take you to their microsite. Their microsite is specific to our plan. So if you're looking for, you can always log into your account. So hopefully you all have access to your accounts online. TIA and Fidelity both have great online platforms. But you can look there, or you can look on the microsite. The microsite will have things like what funds are available, what's the performance, what's the return on the funds, and all of that information on what's available as far as like the mandatory account. And then again, that 403B, which is that voluntary account if somebody wanted to contribute more. Okay. I already touched on this one. If you don't have access, if you have either TIA or Fidelity and you haven't set up your online account, I would highly encourage you to do so. Again, they both have great online platforms. And they're just wonderful. Para also has an online platform that is wonderful as well. So if you are a Para participant, please make sure that you do get set up online with Para. I know that they have made some great improvements to their website over the past couple of years and access to information and different things like that. So do make sure that you do reach out to them as well. Para does not have a dedicated rep for MSU Denver. But that's because, you can call into Para and they have a customer service team that helps everybody with their accounts. And so we don't have like necessarily one rep that they send to do one-on-one appointments with. Rather, Para wants us to direct you over to them and you can just call their general customer service line and they'll be able to route you accordingly and get you in touch with somebody. And they offer, virtual appointments just like TIA and Fidelity do. They offer in-person appointments. And as you all probably know, they have different locations throughout the Denver metro area. Okay. Any questions on any of that? Okay, so far it's all making sense. Okay. So let's jump over into transitional retirement. So before we go through this, please note that within the faculty handbook, transitional retirement is specifically addressed on pages 39 and 40. And so to break it down, the process itself is handled through academic affairs. When it comes to the actual, like, you've been approved for transitional retirement, we're moving into your transitional retirement period, that's where we come in, or HR comes into that side. So the process and the application and all those good things is handled through the academic affairs side, and then we handle the, once it comes to kind of like the nuts and bolts and making it all work and what does the contract look like and pay and all those good things, that's where HR kind of comes in. So here is an outline, just high level, of what the process looks like. It's also, the application process is also outlined in the procedural calendar. So if you're looking for specific due dates on these different processes, that could be found within the procedural calendar. It'll outline everything. So the first due date is typically in January. And this is, it goes like I kind of outlined, where it starts is with you as a faculty member. And that's having a conversation with your department chair and saying, hey, I want to pursue transitional retirement and here's my application. There is an application that goes along with it. And so once you turn that in January, it then follows a process. So it goes from the faculty member to the department chair to the dean to the provost, provost to president, and then ultimately the board of trustees. And so any transitional appointments typically get approved wherever that board of trustee meeting falls. Sometimes I think it's at the end of April and sometimes it's at the beginning of May. But wherever that meeting falls is where they go through and they will review and approve any transitional retiree applications. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Duration. So on the application itself, one of the questions that it asks is duration. And do know that transitional retirement runs on an academic year. Okay, so when we say 1 to 3 year appointments, we are talking academic years. And so if you are approved, say you're like, hey, 25, 26, I want to start transitional retirement. So January 25, your application would be due. But as a part of that conversation with your department chair, you need to have that conversation also. What is the duration? Am I looking at transitional appointment for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? And there is a justification that has to be written within the application of essentially what are you going to be doing over the transitional appointment period. But it can range from 1 to 3, but it cannot exceed 3. Okay. A couple of highlights of transitional retirement: you do remain benefits eligible. Okay, so that's one of the pieces. Is a lot of times individuals ask, well, what about my benefits? What happens to my benefits? If I'm going from full-time to part-time, what happens to my benefits? And the answer to that is they stay intact. And that's because we typically see transitional appointments for a half or a 0.5 FTE or part-time. So 1 FTE is full-time, a 0.5 FTE is part-time. To put numbers to it, I know faculty work more than this, so bear with me as I throw these numbers out there, but we say full-time is 40 hours a week. We say part-time is 20 hours a week, okay? So typically what you see with those transitional appointments is you cut your teaching load in half, you cut your duties in half. So it's really, you're transitioning into retirement. You're going from the full-time to the part-time, and it has both benefits, right? It kind of gives you that sense of you're still working part-time, but it also helps the department as well to be able to transition some of those things and the knowledge and all of that. And so you're going from that full-time full load to that part-time part load, if that makes sense. But you do remain benefits eligible. Your pay is also impacted, right? So full-time FTE, bear with me and my numbers here for simplicity. I'm not a math person, but if my full-time salary was say 80,000, and I moved into a transitional retirement period and I went part-time, my salary would be reduced to 40,000. So your salary reflects or mirrors whatever the FTE is, if that makes sense. Yes.
2 questions.
Okay.
One is, can you change the duration? Like, can you say 1 year, but then apply for another year and extend up to 3? Or is it a predetermined
Yeah.
time period?
So to answer that, there has been situations where one says, I'm going to do 1 year. And maybe after that 1 year, because of something, maybe somebody resigned within the department or they need you longer. There has been situations where department chairs, deans, faculty work together to say, you know what, I'm actually going to do 1 more year, or I'm going to do 2 years. So it is something where it can change, just because, departments can change over the course of the year on things that they don't necessarily plan for. So you could plan on a year, and then it could be that the department chair comes to you and asks you to do a second year, and that's okay.
Okay. And then I thought the 0.5 is the only option. Is that true? Or could it be a 0.25 or a 0.75 or something?
So we typically always see it for the 0.5 FTE, right? We typically always see that. There have been situations, again, right? Things happen within departments that maybe are unexpected. So somebody maybe resigns, or 2 people resign, and now it's like, oh shoot, we can't get somebody in that position quick enough. Like, can you help us? And so there might be that adjustment to that FTE. We always want to be flexible. But we typically, yes, do see it for that 0.5 FTE, our part-time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, of course. Denise?
I was wondering, I thought I heard that if you put a duration down of, let's say, 3 years, you still had to reapply every year and get all the okays.
Nope. So
No? Okay.
if you just go right off the bat for the 3-year period of time, you can absolutely do that.
Oh, okay.
And we do have some that
Thank
do
you.
that we sometimes do get those applications that are like, hey, we know this is going to be a 3-year transitional application, and so they don't have to reapply year after year.
Okay. Great.
Yep. Yeah. Peter?
So Amanda, one's status at this point is still pre-retirement. Is that right? And would you still be accruing years, for instance, to para when you were transition? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So with Parrot, it actually gets interesting. So bear with me for just a second. So when an individual with retirement or transitional retirement, it's outlined in the faculty handbook. So if you are a para retire or a para person, you actually would retire with para prior to starting your transitional appointment. Okay. So for example, just bear with me. If you said, okay, 25, 26, fall 25, spring 26, is going to be my year of transitional retirement. You would actually look to retire with para on June 30th of 2025. And the reason being is because para then will require you to take a 30-day break in service. So you would then take the month of July off. Okay. You would then start your transitional appointment on August 1st. So you would be receiving your pay from para, or your monthly benefit from para, when you enter into your transitional appointment. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And what a sweet deal that sounds like then, right? You're collecting para and you're collecting that transition salary.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the way that para calculates your monthly benefit, because right, their calculation to calculate your monthly benefit is like your highest average salary by your years of service, etc. And so you want that salary to display higher, where when you're going into your transitional appointment, you're actually cutting your salary in half, right? So if I'm going from, which is not something that, so you want to collect or start drawing from your para when your salary is higher, essentially, if that makes sense. And there is some now para also, like, they put a rule in, I know, that you can pick and choose your highest average salary from years. It didn't always used to be that way. It used to be like those last 3 years, 5 years, whatever that was. Now you can actually say I want this specific year because my salary was high that year. But in the transitional retirement outlined in the faculty handbook, someone who is with para has to retire from para June 30th, take that 30-day break in service, and then start August 1st with that transitional appointment. Yep. Perfect. Denise?
Sorry, I thought of something else.
No, please.
I understood, and tell me, hopefully this isn't correct, but when you want to do your transitional paperwork, start it in, let's say, January, you have to officially say, I'm going to retire fall 2025, then submit your paperwork, but you run the risk of not getting that transitional retirement, and you can't take back your retirement. Is that true?
Okay, so bear with me as I answer this question. And I'll tell you just from where I sit. So I just completed my 11th year with MSU Denver, actually. I have not seen somebody get denied transitional retirement. That is a question that I get quite often, is exactly what you just said. Hey, what if I say, like, I want to do transitional retirement and this is my retirement date and I don't get approved for transitional retirement? What happens? That's part of the conversation that happens with your department chair, right? Hey, this is what my intentions are. And we wouldn't ask you to write that retirement letter for para of saying, hey, I'm retiring on June 30th for para purposes until after your transitional appointment gets approved. So May would come around. You would get, like, the April, May timeframe would come around. You'd get approved for your transitional appointment. And then we would write the retirement letter with the June 30th information, so that, like, to include, hey, I'm retiring on June 30th. I've been approved for my transitional appointment beginning August 1st. So we would help you with that language within your retirement letter.
I'm not on para, so just what could you do? Would you be then stuck with retiring from MSU on, like, September 1st or whatever, or August 20th?
Yeah, no. So with our DCRP participants, so our DCRP participants do not have to start collecting from their defined contribution plan. They can if they want. Okay, so you can absolutely do that. If somebody says, hey, I want to start drawing from my defined contribution while I'm working, we can absolutely do that. But same scenario in your transitional appointment, you're saying, I'm applying for this transitional period. This is the transitional period that I'm applying for. You're not indicating, and again, transitional appointments, I have not seen them not get approved. Especially when, once the department chair and the dean approve it, I kind of feel like the rest is formality, purposes of just like those checks and balances, but I haven't seen one not get approved.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer? Okay. Okay. Linda?
Yeah, that brings up a question of, right now we can't really move our money at all if we're in one of those prescribed plans. When we move into transitional retirement, are we able to reallocate those funds at that time, or do we have to wait till we've depleted that transitional retirement before we have access to those?
Yeah, so you can't take large distributions out of the account. If you want to start, so if you're a tier or Fidelity person, I'm assuming your question, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm actually Balic Corbridge.
Okay. So you can't take lump sum distributions out of that account because you're still mandatory to contribute to that account. So through the transitional appointment period, if you said, hey, I want to start drawing on my funds, we can work with them to absolutely do that. But the other part that you need to remember too is that you're still going to have contributions going into that account during your transitional appointment period. So you cannot take large distributions out of that account. You can draw monthly benefits out of that account, but not large distributions.
Okay.
Yep. And I will, full transparency, our TIA, Fidelity, and Valak vendors, if that is something that you decide that you want to do, you do need to work with me on it, because we need to partner with the one of whichever vendor you have. Because sometimes, you know, the plan document itself says that you can't take distributions from the account while you're an active employee, except for with transitional appointments, and they don't always deal with those like on a regular basis. So we do partner with them and have to do a little bit of extra work. So if that is something you're interested in, please just let me know, and I'm happy to partner with that vendor and you to make sure that we get it, we get those distributions set up for you and all that kind of good stuff and work through all the details. Denise?
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. I love
okay.
questions. So please don't be sorry.
Can we take our Social Security? Like, let's say we're 67, and even though we're on transitional retirement, can we still start taking our Social Security? Or do you know that?
I would reach out to Social Security
Okay.
on that part and just say, this is my situation. Can I start drawing?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this? I love the questions, so please. Okay. Well, I think we got, we'll talk about the retirement process as a whole, and then we'll pause again. So if anything comes up, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. So when it comes to, this is just a regular retirement process, right? So we talked about the transitional retirement process. There's applications, there's deadlines, there's a process that goes into it. There's all of those kinds of good things. We do have some individuals that just say, hey, I don't want to do transitional retirement. I'm ready to retire, and let's do it. So what does that process look like? And I will, you know, put out there first and foremost, we try and keep this as simple as possible on our side. So a lot of times people reach out to me and say, what is the process? And I explain this process, and they look at me and they say, well, what else? And I will tell you, we try and keep it as simple as possible on our side, because look, retirement is it's complicated, right? You have Social Security, you have Medicare benefits potentially, you have para, you have paracare, you have all those other things on the other side that you get to work with. So we like to keep our side as simple as possible. So if somebody says, you know what, I'm good, I'm going to retire at the end of the spring semester, I'm good. What does that look like, Amanda? So the first thing that I will tell you is, prior to your retirement date, please communicate with your retirement vendor. Reach out to them, make sure any paperwork that they require, what you want to do with the money, how you want to receive the money, all those kinds of good things. You need to work directly with the retirement vendor. I always encourage individuals, reach out to that retirement vendor, 60, 90 days in advance to start those conversations. Really, anything more than those 90 days, sometimes they'll kind of just, they'll look at you a little bit, but really within that 60, 90-day time frame of being out from retirement, you do want to make sure that you are engaging in conversations. Once you're ready to put it in writing, what that looks like is, it can be an email. It usually is an email, but it's an email to your department chair and your dean. It's however you want to slice it. It can be 2 sentences, it can be 3 paragraphs, it can be whatever it is that you want it to be. But it is a notification, an email from you to your department chair and your dean. And you will get an email back from them. Typically, the dean will send an email letting you know, thank you. We accept your retirement notification and do know that it is irrevocable. Okay, so I always know that language kind of scares people or throws them off guard. So I like to just give you all a heads up that is what the email says when they write you back, that it is irrevocable. And that's it. Okay, that literally on your end is it. It goes to them. They let HR know. You can also send us a copy as well to make sure that we get that notification. And then it's really on the department chair or the department admin to make sure that the information gets inputted into Workday, right? Because then Workday kicks off all the processes on the offboarding as far as notifying you, hey, schedule your exit interview. You're going to turn in your laptop and everything to ITS. You're going to turn in your keys, your badge, all that kind of good stuff. It sends you all those notifications within the Workday system. But once you send that over to them, that is then in their hands to input in the system. A couple other helpful things. I always get asked, what do I need to know? First and foremost, benefits terminate in the month in which you terminate. So if May 30th is your last day, on May 31st, your benefits will terminate. Know that on that transitional appointment, right? We talked about that just to link that back. If you're a para person and you're retiring on June 30th to take that 30-day break in service, you don't have a lapse in benefits. Okay, transitional retirement, completely separate. There is no lapse in benefits. For retirement purposes, though, just remember your benefits are going to term in the month in which you term. So if that's in May, they term in May. If it's in June, they term in June. And it doesn't matter when you terminate within the month, they always will term on the last day of the month. So you could term on May 15th, they're going to terminate on May 31st. You could do May 30th, it's going to be May 31st. So just that last day of the month. Another part to note is if your last day or retirement day is May 30th or May 31st, any money due on your contract would be paid out at that time. So as you all know, you're on the 9-month contract that pays over the course of 12 months. And you have the DPA, which is the deferred pay accrual, which gets pinched from your pay for 9 months to then pay over the course of 3 months during the summer. If you term in May, that DPA accrual that you would have seen in June and July is going to be paid out on that final paycheck. So you can expect that paycheck to be a little bit larger, which means that it does get hit with taxes. The fun word, it's that time of year too. 10 days till tax day. Everybody is having fun with that. So just something to note. It does, wherever that final pay ends, just know that the contract would be paid out on that final pay. Okay. Any questions on that process? And I can hear my husband coming, so I'm going to shut the door. When I can hear him talking through my noise canceling headphones, I know he's coming. Okay. All right, that was easy. Last question I get, emeritus status. What does it look like? What does it mean? So emeritus status is outlined on page 21 of the faculty handbook. I just high level pulled a couple of things. So note there at the bottom, I said, please see the handbook for a full list of benefits. I just pulled out the ones that I get asked about the most. So there's a full list within the handbook. It's pretty lengthy, but I just pulled out the top 3. So eligibility. All faculty who have completed 10 years or more of full-time service are eligible. A department chair or any faculty within the department may nominate somebody, and then the final authority to grant emeritus status rests with the Board of Trustees. One thing that I will say here, so emeritus status only gets approved once a year. So I do get the question sometimes, somebody may be retiring before it goes to the board for approval. It's okay. We're not gonna turn off your email. We just need to know that hey, I've been nominated for emeritus status. I want to keep my email. We then partner with IT to make sure that we leave everything on until that gets that final approval, because we recognize that the board only approves those once a year. So if for any reason, what I'm trying to say is, if for any reason you're retiring before the board approves your emeritus status, just let us know so that we can partner with IT so that we can make sure that all of those items stay on. And that way there's nothing that's shut off to then have to be turned back on, etc. But they do always also approve that in that April-May board meeting. So transitional appointments and the emeritus status all are encompassed in that April-May meeting. A couple of highlights, or the one I think that I get asked the most, is one of the benefits of emeritus status is, yes, you get to keep your university email account. The second is you get to retain your library privileges, and then you do retain the ability to teach up to 9 credit hours per semester as an adjunct if one wishes to do so. Okay, and then again, there's a full list within the handbook, but those are just the 3 that I am most commonly asked about. Okay, questions?
I'll just add a little observational advice, which is to make sure, even if you're retaining email and different things, I'm a department chair, so I've observed this a few times, is to make sure you get everything out of the university electronic system that you want, like Canvas and things that you assume you'll be able to get, everything off your hard computer, because I have seen faculty unfortunately lose some things because they thought they could do that later than they could. So
yeah, that's
be
a great
prepared
point
for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And IT, I do know will help also, because I know sometimes faculty are nervous and they might not, they want to make sure they get everything. I know IT will help as well, but that is an excellent point with making sure, because you do hand over your laptop and all of those good things. So, and that access does go away. So, yeah, good point. Any other questions about maybe anything that we've covered?
Maybe just quickly, Amanda, and I know Linda talked about this a little, so I certainly don't expect any details, but my understanding is that if I'm eligible for Social Security and para will impact the Social Security amount. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. There's some caveats to that with quarters with Social Security. If you have a certain amount of quarters, it can be non-impacted. But what I recommend is meeting with Social Security, and from the feedback that I have received about Social Security, in person is better than on the phone. So I have heard some horror stories about calling into Social Security, getting disconnected, having to wait for long periods of time. And I have heard the other tip of advice that I've heard over the years is if you're meeting with Social Security or looking to go meet at one of the Social Security offices, sometimes our rural communities are not as busy areas. So I've seen individuals go, like up north a little bit. They're maybe just not as busy or more or smaller offices that aren't utilized as much. So just another tip of advice that I've heard throughout the years. I almost relate it to kind of like a passport, right? If you're looking to get a passport, your main post offices and all those are going to be pretty busy. But if you go out to like Kiowa, they almost always can get you in maybe that same day. So if you're willing to travel a little bit.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So please note, the retirement presentation is in the chat, first and foremost. Second, I am here to answer questions. So if after today you still have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you think of something over the weekend or next week or in 2 weeks, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm also happy to set up meetings to meet with individuals individually to talk about, their specific situation, because I know sometimes we have faculty members that are like, well, I teach summer courses or anything like that. Happy to have those conversations, happy to have those brainstorming sessions and answer any questions that you have. You all know where to find me if you need me. But otherwise, I think I might give you a few minutes back in your day, if that sounds okay.
Super helpful, Amanda, and informative. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And nice
Yeah,
to see
thank
all of you
you.
today. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
It was great. And thank you for all the questions. It's I love questions, so thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.